Let's unpack some high school trauma together. Euphoria is a dark, beautifully shot HBO show that follows the lives of a group of teenagers who have some heavy and dark experiences. With the return of season 2, I wanted to give some book recommendations based on each of the characters. Let's start with Jules, who inspired tonight's look. Now I have a couple of different recommendations based on the different facets of her character. She has overcome depression and self-harm, and she also explores her sexuality through a series of one-night stands with older men. She transitioned about 4 years ago and is now unabashedly herself. Confidence, we love to see it. The First Bad Man by Miranda July is about absurd and flawed people. It also gets a little sexually explicit at times, so watch out, HBO. And you probably have to like a little bit of crazy to like the book. I remember the first thing I thought when I finished the book was, wow, that author must have gone through some shit. There are also some truly excellent lines, like, she was exactly the type of woman who would end up murdered. I don't know why I gave Miranda that accent. I don't think she's from England. If you like the part of Jules where she learns about herself and learns the importance of connection, I would recommend Project Hail Mary. It might seem like an odd choice because it's science fiction set in space, but it's a great recommendation. Project Hail Mary is written by the same author who wrote The Martian, so they're kind of similar. The book starts off with a character in space who has completely lost his memory. He has no idea who he is or why he's in space, and we watch him slowly discover who he is and the importance of connection with other people. Sound like anyone we know? I told you it was a great recommendation. Next up, we have Cassie. Cassie struggles with her reputation of being sexually promiscuous, so I have to mention the OG slut-shaming companion, The Scarlet Letter. A more modern novel that portrays the weaponization of women's sexuality is The Handmaid's Tale. You might know it from the TV show, but it's a really good book. I was actually really surprised how much I liked it. I was hesitant to pick it up at first because it was my Shakespeare teacher who recommended it, so I was kind of intimidated, but it was really accessible and I breezed right through it. The book, The Circle, also deals with themes of reputation and someone else putting your private information online. No spoilers, but isn't it interesting that whenever explicit photos are leaked, it's always the women who are shamed, even though they're the victims in this situation? There is a movie adaptation of The Circle, but it leaves out a lot of the moral ambiguity that I liked in the book, and may or may not have a different ending. Of the 2 books for Cassie, I do like The Handmaid's Tale more, but that's a pretty high bar. McKay is Cassie's boyfriend, and in season 1 of Euphoria, we see him struggle to adapt to college life. Back in high school, he was a big fish in a small pond, but in college, he feels like everyone is smarter or better than him. McKay's grit reminds me of the dedication and passion of the main character in Skyward by Brandon Sanderson. Yes, another genre novel. Get over it. I absolutely loved this book. It's about a very passionate young woman who longs to be a pilot and save the human race. It's also about a talking spaceship. The character development is really excellent and I just breezed right through it. The pressure McKay's under also reminds me of the situation in The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle. He wakes up in a Groundhog Day-like situation, reliving the same day over and over as different people throughout the day to try to solve the mystery. If he doesn't figure it out by the last person, his memory is wiped and he has to start all over. It's a little neat mystery and a fun concept. I admit I didn't love the writing style at first, but the story was compelling enough that I had to keep reading. Kat is a plus-size teenager who's initially body conscious and very anxious to change her reputation. She becomes a cam girl and becomes increasingly confident about her body. If you don't know what a cam girl is, bless you. The book The Crimson Petal and the White seems to capture Kat pretty well. The book follows a Victorian-era prostitute who uses her body to ascend society, just like how Kat becomes an online dominatrix to fuel the changes she wants to see in her own life. Her journey to self-love and acceptance, I don't know if we're there yet, but that does seem to be the trajectory. Also reminds me of the book How to Stop Feeling Like Shit, which is a how-to guide to quiet your inner critic. It definitely is an explicit how-to with homework and exercises, but it was really funny and a joy to go through. I think we should all get a free copy every time we go get a COVID test. The book Untamed is a memoir with similar energy, about how to be your best self and also has that fierce energy that Kat has. It's called Untamed, right? So, not tame. Sasha fierce vibes. Next up is Nate. Nate is a popular quarterback with a deeply ingrained sense of violent behavior, and he struggles with his sexuality too. Is it too on the nose to see Nate as a popular book about identity and physical expressions of anger? Fight Club, I'm talking about Fight Club. And the first rule of Fight Club is not to talk about Fight Club. So... when it hurts like this. Maddie is Nate's on-again, off-again girlfriend who bears the brunt of his abuse. Maddie is confident and extroverted, kind of a queen bee type. Strong Slytherin energy. The book that comes to mind for Maddie is Super Sad True Love Story. It's a dystopian novel that centers around two characters who we predominantly see interact through their emails and texts. It's quirky and fun and has some similarities to that Black Mirror episode where your social media score is floating over your head. Maddie also has some similarities to Lady Macbeth, who eclipses her husband in cunning, ruthlessness, and appetite for power. For those who don't want to crack open a Shakespeare by the pool, Maddie shares some qualities with Katniss Everdeen as well. Both Katniss and Maddie want to assert their independence and have agency over their own lives. Both women have to cope with violence and trauma, but their love lives are very different. Hashtag Team PETA. Last but not least, Rue, as portrayed by the remarkably talented Zendaya. Rue is a bit pessimistic, a bit misguided, and constantly looking for a fix, usually drugs. She's also an unreliable narrator, so I would like to recommend a book I read recently where the narrator has difficulty telling reality from not reality, but ugh, I didn't like it. The characters make unbelievably stupid decisions that don't make any sense. There are some books from the 70s, specifically Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas and Electric Kool-Aid Acid Test, that kind of speak to the drug-addicted side of Rue's behavior. Reading those two books makes you feel like you are on drugs, and I can't say I necessarily recommend that, but if you're into that kind of thing, have at it. Slaughterhouse-Five has a similar narrative voice to Rue. It's pessimistic but compelling. Slaughterhouse-Five is a pretty iconic postmodern book, and I guess Euphoria is kind of postmodern. It's not terribly meta or self-referential, but the story's told out of order, so, Speaking of postmodernism, Candide. The author pokes fun at people who are perpetually and toxically optimistic, and I think Rue would be into that. We also see Rue struggle to overcome trauma and depression, and if you like that side of her, I would recommend Room, which is about a girl who is abducted and only lives inside of a single room. I would also recommend You're Never Weird on the Internet, which is a memoir that deals with overcoming depression and Everything I Never Told You by Celeste Ng. That last one is particularly raw, so if you don't want to experience the trauma alongside the family after having just lost a daughter, maybe skip that one. Well, that's a weird place to end.